looking to connect a region of over 600 million bridges between our lands.
Hello, I'm Alma Angeles. We're moving to the next stage of the pandemic, and as the world resets to the new normal, we find ourselves seeking the right balance between health and livelihood, constantly adjusting the boundaries between liberty and responsibility. On today's headlines. Japan gives over $19.6 million to 4 Vietnamese hospitals to fight COVID-19. Our EBC correspondent Eliana Faith Sebastian for the update. Schools across Cambodia reopen. Melding Mahinay from our EBC Cambodia Bureau reports. And the Thai-Myanmar border is on alert versus COVID-19. Cristel Mapa will join us live. And greetings for the Iglesia ni Cristo Executive Minister, Brother Eduardo Manalo, for his 11th year of dynamic and strong leadership of the Church. Later. President Duterte has granted absolute pardon to U.S. Marine Lance Corporal Joseph Scott Pemberton, who was convicted for the death of Filipino transgender woman Jennifer Laude. Now, President Duterte explained his decision, saying the country did not treat Pemberton fairly when one is considering the questions prevailing over his actual prison time. Let's listen in.
Ito bang hindi malaman ngayon ng gobyerno anong klaseng computation gawin, anong factors to contribute to the equation that would arrive at a reasonable conclusion that these things happen and should be there included sa pag-compute. Alam mo, I am not favoring anybody, neither Pemberton nor the family. Pero alam mo, itong gobyerno may konting dapa. Kasi sa good behavior, kailan i-compute mo sa lahat, detain siya for the crime, facing trial, and prison siya for the crime. Iba yung detenado ka habang yung kaso pinapanggan ng korte, trial. Iba naman yung detenado ka na, sentensyado ka na after trial. Siya kasi, well, being tried, detain na siya. Tapos, nung na-convicted siya, tuloy-tuloy na. Ngayon, ganito yan. The basic fault there is when you talk about good behavior, lahat na kwintahin mo. Ngayon, kung hindi mo kwintahin, may kasalanan ka rin because they say that it is part of your being in prison. Sa ayat mo sa hindi, nakakulong ka rin. So you are a person deprived of liberty. Ngayon, ang pagkwenta, hindi alam nila kung kasali ba o hindi at may record. Walang record kasi yung lugar, alin doon na nagdetenado si Pemberton, sa Marines, sa garrison. Ang Marines never kept a record of hindi trabaho ng Marines yan na magbantay kasi hindi yan sila BJMP o taga Muntinlupa. BJMP noong hinihir pa yung kaso. Muntinlupa, yung sa loob na taga Muntinlupa, iba yan. Tandaan ninyo ito ha, yung detenado ka pa lang, hinihir yung kaso mo, BJMP ka. Hindi ka makakulong sa Muntinlupa. Ngayon, kung matapos na ang kaso, sentensyado ka, bibitawan ka na ng BGMP, ibigay ka na doon sa mga Muntinlupa personnel. Yung ngayon, yung kaso pag yung sa pagkapreso niya, wala silang record. So pagka walang record, di mo malaman kung nabilang ba o hindi. Oh well, pagka ganon, hindi kasalanan ni Pemberton. He is not required to keep his record of his own and characterize his behavior there inside while in prison, detenado for the hearing. Ikakwenta pa ba yung ano? Ang problema nito ganito. Sino magsabi ngayon na noong detenado siya, nagkakalat siya sa loob, sumisigaw siya, o sinisira niya, destroys things? Wala eh. Kasi walang listahan. So it is not the fault of Pemberton na hindi na na-compute because we should allow him the good character presumption. Kasi wala namang nag-report na Marines na nagsabi nagwawala siya. The Marines could have reported, if it were otherwise, to the Secretary of Justice or to the police, to the PNP, na itong tao na ito magulo. Na in fairness, tapos na yung kwintada. He was recommended to be released. I-release mo. It's my decision to pardon. Correct me if I'm wrong. But ito ang tingin ko sa kaso. You have not treated Pemberton fairly. So, i-release ko. Pardon. Pardon, walang maka-question yan. It's, wala talaga. It cannot be questioned anywhere. You know, if there is a time where you are called upon to be fair, be fair.
Now, Japan is giving over $19.6 million to 4 Vietnamese hospitals to help fight COVID-19 outbreak. Joining us live from Vietnam, here is Eliana Faith Sebastian. Hello, Eliana.
Hello, Alma. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Go ahead.
Here are the latest updates here in Vietnam. First, Japan supports Vietnam's COVID-19 fight with $20 million package. The Japanese government has given 455 billion Vietnam dong, equivalent to over 19.6 million US dollars, to 4 Vietnamese hospitals to help them fight the COVID-19 outbreak. The 4 hospitals to receive the funds are National Lung Hospital, National Hospital of Tropical Diseases, National Institute of Hematology and Blood Transfusion, all in Hanoi, and the Da Nang Si Hospital in the central city of Da Nang. The funds will be released over 18 months, beginning August. Acting Health Minister Nguyen Thanh Long stated Monday at the signing ceremony of the exchange note between the two governments on the COVID-19 relief package that the Japanese government's support package to Vietnam is very valuable. The overall goal of the grant is to provide technical assistance to upgrade medical equipment to the 4 hospitals towards meeting the COVID-19 pandemic control and prevention needs, limiting COVID-19 related incidents and deaths, meeting the needs of medical examination and treatment, and improving the quality of healthcare for Vietnamese people. Japanese Ambassador Yamato Takeo said that when Japan faces scarcity of masks this spring, the Vietnamese government had sent over 1.2 million masks. Also, the signing ceremony, both delegations discussed medical issues related to the resumption of commercial flights between the two countries. Vietnam has so far reported 1,049 COVID-19 cases, with 853 recoveries and 35 fatalities. In other news, Alma, domestic flights to and from Da Nang resumed. Vietnamese airlines are now allowed to resume domestic flights to and from Da Nang after more than a month of social distancing due to the COVID-19 outbreak. This move follows a decision by the Ministry of Transport and the Civil Aviation Authority of Vietnam after the pandemic has been brought under control in the city. The national flag carrier Vietnam Airlines began operating one round trip between Hanoi and Da Nang and one round trip between Ho Chi Minh City and Da Nang. The schedule of flights to and from Da Nang after September 11 will be updated regularly according to the situation and requests by authorities. During this time, Vietnam Airlines continues seat spacing at the request of the Ministry of Transport to minimize the possibility of infection and recommends its passengers to take measures to protect their health as well as the community. The carrier applies comprehensive prevention procedures and standards from the ground to the air, such as cleaning, spraying, and disinfecting the aircraft, service equipment, and medical protective equipment for employees. Passengers will make medical declarations, take temperature measurements before boarding, and wear masks during their journey. Aerial service standards are simplified to limit repeated exposure. Operation schedules can be adjusted by Vietnam Airlines based on the situation as well as the impact of the disease. In case of schedule change, passengers will be notified and assisted in accordance with the current regulations of the airline. Back to you, Alma.
Looking forward to more updates there in Vietnam. Thank you, Eliana.
Thank you, Alma, and we would also like to greet the Executive Minister of Iglesia Ni Cristo, Father Eduardo V. Manalo, for celebrating 11 years of outstanding leadership. Reporting live from Da Nang, Vietnam, this is Eliana Faith Sebastian. We live in interesting times.
Now, schools across Cambodia have reopened and a new coronavirus lab also. Here's Meldy Mahinay joining us live from Cambodia. Meldy.
Hello, Alma. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Meldy. Yes.
Here is the latest update. Schools across Cambodia opened for students yesterday following the green light from the Ministry of Education after 6 months of closures to curb the spread of COVID-19. According to the ministry, the second phase of reopening the schools allows only for grade 9 and grade 12 students to open, and each classroom must adhere to strict health measures. However, 4 provinces including Krati, Stung Treng, Tatanakiri, and Moldulkiri, only schools in the provincial town were authorized to resume all classes levels from kindergarten up to high school, as these provinces have been assessed as having a low risk of COVID-19 infection. Rosoy Bacha, Education Ministry spokesman, said yesterday that each school must follow the health measures set by the Ministry of Health and the World Health Organization. Sobiacha said each classroom must adhere to the ministry's guidelines with a maximum of 20 students per class being seated at least 2 meters apart. Schools must provide a safe, inclusive, comfortable, and friendly learning environment. He added, before entering the school, students are required to have a temperature check, wash their hands, and wear face masks. Sobiacha also said that about 300 private schools will reopen. He added, if this school fail to comply with the ministry's safety measures, then they will be warned or shut down temporarily. Director of Sisowat High School, Maul Soy Heng, yesterday said that their class sizes have been reduced to a maximum of 20 students, in line in the ministry guidelines. Soy Heng added, every teacher works hard to ensure that all students can learn in safe environment, especially for grade 12 students, as soon they will have a national exam. Deputy Director of Sisowat High School and Director of the New Generation School Program, Sam Kamsan, yesterday emphasized that students should continue.
Okay, we'll try and get back with Meldy in a little while. It seems that we lost connection with her. Meanwhile, in Bangkok, the Thai-Myanmar border is on alert versus COVID-19. Joining us live from Bangkok, here's Cristel Mapa. Hello, Cristel.
Hi, Alma. Good afternoon to you, and good afternoon to all our viewers. So here's our latest update from Thailand. The Ministry of Public Health is still worried about COVID-19 infections in Myanmar following predictions that the virus could reach the Thai-Myanmar border in the next 2 weeks. The director of the Division of Communicable Diseases said the COVID-19 situation in Myanmar was a great concern as the country was now reporting more than 100 cases per day in many cities. The disease had started to spread from Rakhine State on the west coast to the central region, he said, and although Myanmar's COVID-19 hotspots were still far from Thailand, it was forecast that the virus would spread to the border areas in 2 weeks' time. On said stringent measures had already been put in place along the border. Regarding South Korea's report of a 50-year-old infected man who had just returned from Thailand, he said officials in Bangkok had requested the person's details from the Ministry of Health and Welfare of South Korea so they could investigate the infection. The commander of the 12th Ranger Forces Regiment Control Group on Monday led a team of officers to at-risk patrol areas along the Thai-Cambodia borders in Aranya Pratet District, Sakyo, including the famous Rongklua Market, in an effort to prevent the COVID-19 entering Thailand. In the other news, the Tourism Authority of Thailand, or TAT, said the recent long national holiday, which was from September 4 to 7, generated 8.8 billion baht in revenue. TAT governor said the agency met its revenue goal, adding it is pleased with the outcome of the burgeoning local travel scene. The tourism industry had previously been buoyed by foreign tourists, but with the COVID-19 pandemic and its economic impact, the TAT devised a campaign called Rautiai Daikan to encourage Thais to travel as much as possible, thus generating revenues. One of its tactics is to encourage people to travel on weekdays. The TAT has also modeled the creation of more holidays and opportunities for locals to visit various parts of the kingdom. These updates are according to Bangkok Post. Back to you, Alma.
All right. Thank you very much, Christelle, for your updates there in Thailand. Stay safe, stay healthy.
You too, Alma. Reporting live from Thailand, this is Crystal Mapa. We live in interesting times.
Meanwhile, the World Health Organization said it didn't expect widespread immunization against the novel coronavirus until mid-2021. Now that's tempering hopes, just as research revealed encouraging early results from a Russian vaccine. Russia has already approved the vaccine, and research published in the Lancet Medical Journal said that patients involved in early tests develop antibodies with no serious adverse effects. Let's listen in.
I think Soumya had said it all. I just want to stress a bit. I would like to assure the public that WHO will not endorse a vaccine that's not effective and safe. This will be done by WHO and local authorities. As to the anti-vax movement, they can build narratives to fight against vaccines, but the track record of vaccines tells its own story. And people should not be confused by a movement, anti-vax movement, but they can have a look for themselves on how the world actually used vaccines to reduce under 5 mortality, to save children.
Okay, let's go back to Cambodia with our EBC correspondent Meldy Mahinay, where schools have reopened across the country. Meldy?
Hi, Alma. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I hope I don't lose you again. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Here's the latest update. Schools across Cambodia reopened for students yesterday, following the green light from the Ministry of Education after 6 months of closures to curb the spread of COVID-19. According to the ministry, the second phase of reopening the schools allows only for grade 9 and grade 12 students to open, and each classroom must adhere to strict health measures. However, 4 provinces, including Kratie, Stongtreng, Ratana Kiri, and Moldul Kiri, only schools in the provincial town were authorized to resume all class levels from kindergarten up to high school, as these provinces have been assessed as having a low risk of COVID-19 infection. Rosa Bacha, Education Ministry spokesman, said yesterday that each school must follow the health measures set by the Ministry of Health and the World Health Organization. So Bacha apart.
Okay.
Schools must provide a safety, inclusive, comfortable, and friendly learning environment. He added, before entering the school, the students are required to have a temperature check, wash their hands, and wear face masks. So Biacho also said that about 300 private schools will reopen. He added, if this school fail to comply with the ministry's safety measures, then they will be warned or shut down temporarily. Director of Sisuwat High School, Maul Soicheng, yesterday that their class sizes have been reduced to a maximum of 20 students in line with the ministry guidelines. Soicheng added, every teacher works hard to ensure that all students can learn in a safe environment, especially for grade 12 students, as they will have a national exam soon. Deputy Director of Sisuwat High School and Director of the New Generation School Program, Sam Kansan, yesterday emphasized that students should continue with online classes despite the school's reopening. Therefore, in the NGS program, students are still divided into two shifts. Students from each shift need to experience both physical and online classes. Instead, we have implemented this strategy since March, and we have seen that it has helped the students during these pandemics. Fobsom Nobasan, a grade 9 student from Boyan Trabec High School, yesterday said that there were only 18 students in their room. During and after the study, they were not allowed to gather in a big crowd. While Alma, the Health Ministry will establish a testing facility for COVID-19 in Preah Sihanouk Province in a bid to expedite checks. The announcement of the lab construction came as Health Minister Mam Bun Heng visited Sihanoukville Referral Hospital in Baon Commune. Bun Heng said the construction of the lab and the testing is in partnership with China. He said the laboratory will be for all and tourists because this province has potential for tourists and investments. Preah Sihanouk Province said the provincial administration is supported at the lab, but is waiting for the master plan to be approved so that the construction will commence. Chong Meron said the laboratory will provide health services to the people of foreign tourists as well as investors in Sihanoukville who needs health services. In March, 29 French nationals and 2 Cambodian tour guides were diagnosed with COVID-19 in Preah Sihanouk Province after coming into contact with the 2 French patients. Their specimens were sent to Phnom Penh. The Ministry of Health has put more effort to establish COVID-19 testing facilities in other provinces on top of the laboratory center in Phnom Penh. Back to you, Alma.
Your updates there in Cambodia. See you again this week. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. See you tomorrow, Alma.
See you.
Okay. Reporting live from Chom Chau, Cambodia. This is Melody Mahinay. We live in interesting times.
In other news in the ASEAN region, nearly 300 Rohingya migrants reached Indonesia early Monday, claiming to have been at sea for 7 months, according to the United Nations, in one of the biggest landings by the persecuted Myanmar minority in years. Now, the migrants, including more than a dozen children, were spotted at sea on a wooden boat by locals who helped them. The group was reported to be the largest to land in Indonesia since at least 2015. The incident comes after about 100 Rohingya, mostly women and children, arrived in the same area in June following what they described as a perilous 4-month sea journey that saw them beaten by traffickers and forced to drink their own urine to stay alive. Around 1 million Rohingya live in cramped and squalid refugee camps in Bangladesh, where human traffickers also run lucrative operations, promising to find them sanctuary abroad. Now, Muslim-majority Indonesia and neighboring Malaysia are favored destinations for Rohingya fleeing persecution and violence in Myanmar. Now, the nearly 300 Rohingya migrants underwent preliminary health checks and screening for COVID-19 in Aceh, Indonesia after reaching shore early this morning. Yes, that's right. Let's listen in.
Kalau ada yang reaktif, nanti hasilnya, mudah-mudahan tidak ada ya, kita akan siapkan ya ruang isolasi sementara di Rusunawa, kemudian akan kita lakukan swab.
ASEAN in Focus will be right back.
Do you want to earn a degree while you work? New Era University now offers Expanded Tertiary Education Equivalency and Accreditation Program, or ETIAP. ETIAP is an educational scheme that recognizes knowledge, skills, and prior learning obtained by individuals from non-formal and informal education experiences. It is implemented through deputized higher educational institutions like the New Era University that awards the appropriate degrees. Programs offered are the following: Master's Program, Masters of Arts in Education, major in Educational Management, Master's Program in Business Administration, Bachelor of Arts in Science, major in Political Science, Bachelor of Arts in Science, major in Mass Communication, Bachelor of Science in Education, major in Filipino, major in English, Bachelor of Science in Business Administration with majors in Human Resources Development, Marketing Management, and Financial Management. Beneficiaries must be Filipinos who have attained at least high school level of education. The program is flexible and you don't need to attend regular classes. Expanded Tertiary Education Equivalency and Accreditation Program, or ETIAP, is under the supervision of Dr. Nilo L. Rosas, the University President, and Professor Anita P. Santos, Director of ETIAP. For more information, contact the following: Cristina Moreno, 0995-138-0786, or email cvmoreno@neu.edu.ph, or Arlene Sarmiento, 0906-298-9150, or email cedctl@neu.edu.ph. What are you waiting for? Let New Era University be your partner in achieving your dreams.
Brunei and Singapore opened up essential travel by establishing green lanes between their two countries. This is a strategy to slowly revive air travel and get the economic activities going. In a report in the Straits Times, the Foreign Affairs Ministries of Singapore and Brunei said in a joint statement, quote, both sides have agreed on an arrangement to allow the safe resumption of cross-border movement of a limited number of people with necessary safeguards in place to ensure the public health concerns of both countries are addressed. Currently, Singapore has already established travel corridors with Malaysia and China for essential business trips and for those with valid work visa holders. Travelers must also undertake similar health protocols as those set up in the Brunei travel corridor. The Straits Times also reported that travelers from Singapore and Brunei must have remained in their respective countries for at least 14 days before departure and undertake a COVID-19 test within 72 hours before the flight. The ASEAN briefing, meanwhile, further reports that the only short-term business for official travel is allowed to official travel is allowed to enter Brunei from Singapore. As with entering Singapore, travelers must be sponsored by a Brunei-based company or government agency who will apply for an entry travel pass on behalf of the traveler. In other news, the Philippines has partially lifted the import ban on Brazilian chicken meat products a few days after the Latin American state warned that it may dispute Manila's ban before the World Trade Organization. Less than a month after imposing a blanket ban, the Department of Agriculture has allowed the entry of mechanically deboned meat of chicken from Brazil on certain conditions. Under Memorandum Order 42, Agriculture Secretary William Dar explained that they reviewed the ban based on the documents submitted by Brazil on its measures in preventing the spread of COVID-19 in its foreign meat establishments, or FMEs. The DA has required Brazilian FMEs to include an additional attestation to their shipments, stating that the exported product, quote, was handled and processed in facilities with functional food safety management systems and where stringent hygiene and sanitation measures are practiced, unquote. Furthermore, the shipments must carry a safe handling label, and all imports of MDM chicken shall be for the sole use of an accredited meat processor in the manufacture of heat-treated products. The Bureau of Animal Industry Director, Ronnie D. Domingo, said they lifted the ban on chicken MDM from Brazil since there is a control mechanism in tracing where the products are going, in this case, meat processors. The DA also banned the importation of chicken meat products from Brazil on August 14 following reports that certain samples of Brazil shipments to China tested positive for the coronavirus. The House of Representatives approved on third and final reading the bill granting San Miguel Corp a franchise for the construction of the new Manila International Airport in Bulacan. Voting 218 affirmative, 6 negative, with 2 abstentions, House members passed House Bill 7507, granting San Miguel Aerocity Incorporated a franchise to establish the domestic and international airport in the municipality of Bulacan and develop an adjacent airport city. The bill will now be transmitted to the Senate for its own deliberations. Now to be built on a 2,400-hectare property in Bulacan, just north of Metro Manila, the $15 billion airport complex will have 4 runways, 8 taxiways, and 3 passenger terminals. It also has provisions for future expansion to sport 6 runways and to accommodate 200 million passengers per year. It's also expected to help raise tourism levels to 30 million visitors annually, generate over 1 million direct and indirect jobs, and contribute roughly 900 billion pesos annually to the Philippine GDP by 2025. Moreover, the bill mandates the grantee to secure the appropriate permits and licenses for the construction, development, establishment, operation, and maintenance of its airport properties or facilities from the Civil Aviation Authority of the Philippines, or CAAP. The bill also requires the grantee to commence construction of the airport within 1 year from the effectivity of the proposal, complete the construction for 10 years, and to commence operations within 1 year from the approval of the operating permit from CAAP. A Thai court ruled that 2 prominent activists should be jailed for breaching bail conditions by repeatedly joining youth-led anti-government protests calling for reforms to the kingdom's monarchy. Anna Numpa and Panupong Jatnok had continued to speak out about the controversial issue since being arrested last month, and on Thursday, Bangkok's criminal court revoked their bail, according to the lawyer. They will be detained at Bangkok Remand Prison, according to lawyer Crisadang Nutjaras. He told this to the reporters outside the court earlier. Human rights lawyer Anon was the first activist to air the long taboo subject of monarchical reform during a protest last month. He was arrested days later along with Panupong. Now, they were the first people authorities charged with sedition following a massive July 18 demonstration which kicked off a pro-democracy movement that has gathered steam across the country. So far, more than 24 activists have been arrested, charged, and released on bail for involvement in protests that have drawn up to 20,000 demonstrators. The pro-democracy movement is calling for the resignation of Premier Prayut Chan-o-cha and a complete overhaul of his military-aligned government, which they consider illegitimate. The Lao Ministry of Health has reported a surge in the number of dengue cases and infected cases across the country, continue to rise. According to a report from Laos Ministry of Health on Sunday, almost 6,000 people have been diagnosed with dengue fever, and 11 deaths have been recorded. Online newsstar.com says the highest number of dengue patients were reported in Lao capital Vientiane with 1,403, while 690 cases were recorded in Bolikamsai province and 611 in Vientiane province. Center of Information and Education for Health under Laos Ministry of Health in a statement. According to the World Health Organization, dengue fever is one of the fastest emerging infections, with Thailand, Laos, the Philippines, Malaysia, and Singapore also seeing high incidence. In other news, the Japan Coast Guard was set to resume an aerial search for the missing, mostly Filipino crew members of a cargo ship that sank off Japan last week at the height of a storm, according to the Department of Foreign Affairs. A second, more violent storm had forced Japanese authorities to suspend their massive search for survivors of the Panamanian-flagged vessel Gulf Livestock 1, with a cargo of 5,867 cattle and 43 seamen, 2 of them New Zealanders, 2 Australians, and the rest Filipinos. The area is still pounded by gusty winds, and search by patrol boat is not possible at this time, according to the DFA. The DFA remained hopeful through the Philippine Embassy in Tokyo and the Philippine Consulate General in Osaka that the other Filipino seafarers could be found. A strong earthquake struck southwestern Mindanao at near midnight Sunday, sending residents to scamper outside their houses in panic. Now, the Philippine Institute of Volcanology, or PHIVOLCS, recorded the tremor at magnitude 6.4 at a depth of 143 kilometers at a mountainous region of Don Marcelino town of Davao Occidental at 11:23 p.m. The tremor was of tectonic in origin, with no reported damage to business establishments and infrastructure, but its effect rippled through as far as General Santos City to its west, that was felt at intensity 5, Kidapawan City to north at intensity 4, and much further away to Gingoog City in northern Mindanao at intensity 3, and Bislig City in Surigao del Sur to the northeast of intensity 2 at intensity 2. The National Grid Corp of the Philippines said the Mindanao grid remained intact, as there are no reports of power interruption and damaged transmission facilities in Davao Occidental and nearby areas where the earthquake was felt. The eastern half of Mindanao continued to be troubled by earthquakes following the traumatic occurrence of successive quakes of more than magnitude 6 in a span of 2 weeks in late October last year. These occurred in the interior south-central town of Tulunan, South Cotabato. Only last week on August 31, a 5-magnitude quake occurred at a shallow depth of 18 kilometers of Kiblawan town, Davao del Sur, and since January this year, strong earthquakes of tectonic origin have been alternating from epicenters of Sarangani Island in Davao Occidental, Sarangani Province, and in various towns of Davao del Sur and Davao Occidental. President Duterte is expected to sign a 165 billion peso Bayanihan to recover as one act, or the Bayanihan 2, before mid-September. In an online briefing on Monday, presidential spokesman Harry Roque said the president is now just completing his consultations with agencies that will be covered by the bill. Of the 165 billion peso stimulus package included in the bill, 140 billion will be for outlay, while the remaining 25 billion will serve as standby fund. The fund will purchase medical supplies, infuse capital to financial institutions to provide loans to establishments affected by the novel coronavirus disease pandemic.
As soon as possible po, I don't think the first 2 weeks of September will pass without the bill being signed. I think they're aiming that the bill should be signed this week, next week at the latest.
ASEAN in Focus, we'll be right back.
Ngayong Sabado sa Tagisan ng Galing, Part 2, Singing Edition.
Wow!
Fun, good vibes at entertainment all-in-one upang pasayahin ang weekend nyo. Dito sa Tagisan ng Galing, Part 2, Singing Edition.
For win. Tigisan ng Galing Part 2 is co-presented by Cooper, an expert in air conditioning and electromechanical. Also engaged in structural, electrical, fire protection, plumbing, and sanitary services. Cooper, your ultimate MEPS and air conditioning solutions. Unlad Incorporated International, fight against global poverty. Canrib Corporation, your ventilation and air conditioning specialist. Our sponsors, BDO, we find ways. JRC Industrial Sales, RS Square Variables Incorporated, your trusted UPS supplier and UPS maintenance provider in Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. RJK Services Manpower Agency Corporation, Robust Builders, Chris Raff Enterprises, Victory Carpentry, DOP Asiatic Pest Control Services, and AUB Aspire for the Future. In partnership with New Era University ETAP, Expanded Tertiary Education, Equivalency and Accreditation Program. Embrace Cafe, we embrace differently abled persons.
President Duterte expressed gratitude to Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe for his valuable contribution in strengthening ties between the Philippines and Japan. In a statement from the Office of the President, President Duterte conveyed his best wishes for Abe's speedy and full recovery during a 25-minute phone conversation between the two leaders. Prime Minister Abe announced his intention to resign from office due to health reasons on August 28. He's suffering from ulcerative colitis. President Duterte also lauded Abe for his leadership that paved the way for Japan's proactive contribution to peace in the Asia-Pacific, advancing regional security and the rule of law, especially in the Maritime Commons. Japan significantly contributed to the enhancement of the Philippines' capabilities in defense and security, particularly in maritime domain awareness and law enforcement, he added. He also thanked Prime Minister Abe for Japan's pledge of 1 trillion yen from 2017 till 2022 for the government's flagship projects, notably those under the Build program, the necessary support and momentum. Filipinos, he said, are looking forward to the completion of the Metro Manila subway project, the country's first mass underground transport system. He described the subway project as one that would serve as an enduring symbol of Philippine-Japan friendship and cooperation. The president is hopeful that the two countries would sustain its robust economy through the immediate completion of the Philippines-Japan Economic Partnership Agreement General Review. He also expressed appreciation for Japan's support for the Philippines' COVID-19 response, including the two loan agreements meant to boost the country's capacity to restart the economy. Prime Minister Abe, meanwhile, assured the president that Japan will continue to strengthen its strategic partnership with the Philippines, and he recalled warm memories of his visits to the Philippines, including being welcomed to the president's private residence in January of 2017. The value of the Philippines-Japan strategic partnership and relations of friends closer than brothers was also recognized by both leaders. Earlier, Prime Minister Abe said he would stay in office until his successor is chosen through a poll of selected members of the ruling Liberal Democratic Party. The four-year term of Prime Minister Abe, Japan's longest-serving prime minister, would have ended in 2021. And before we leave, please watch these special greetings sent by some very special people. Take a look.
Dear Brother Eduardo V. Bernard, thank you very much for loving and caring the church so much, my family, and I pray to our Lord God to bless and protect you and your family day and night. Happy 11th anniversary of your Sayami leadership. We love you so much po.
Happy 11th anniversary po.
Happy 11th anniversary po. We love you so much po.
Brother Eduardo V. Manalo, happy anniversary po on your 11th year of dynamic leadership. We love you po.
Happy 11th anniversary po, Brother Eduardo Happy 11th anniversary po. We love you po. Happy 11th anniversary po.
From Tauranga Group Worship Service, District of New Zealand, we gladly greet our beloved Executive Minister, Brother Eduardo B. Manalo, for the 11th year dynamic leadership in the church. We love you so much, Lord!
EBC Macau Bureau 向至愛嘅行政牧師 Brother Eduardo V. Manalo 致以親切嘅問候，恭祝 Church of Christ Iglesia Ni Cristo 以及世界各地嘅弟兄姊妹 Happy 106th Anniversary！
From EBC Moscow, Russia, we would like to greet our beloved Executive Minister, Brother Eduardo V. Manalo, a happy 11th anniversary of dynamic leadership. We love you all.
Let me just take this opportunity to extend my personal greetings to Brother Eduardo V. Manalo. I understand that he's now celebrating 11 years of working with Church of Christ in the current leadership role that he's playing today. And I had earlier this year a privilege to be able to meet with him firsthand and experience his humbleness and just his caring attitude dealing with a wide variety of issues. Brother Eduardo, I just wanted to wish you the very best in the years ahead. I am absolutely confident that the church is going to continue to grow and do well as people are connected to having a better relationship with the Lord and just to seeing the fine job that the church is going through over the years ahead. And just wanted to again give you my personal best wishes and thank you very much for that wonderful tour you provided me earlier this year.
Magandang araw po. Ako po si Consul General Val Roque ng Philippine Embassy in Bangkok, Thailand. Bumabati kami kay Ka Eduardo V. Manalo ng maligayang 11th anniversary bilang Executive Minister ng Iglesia ni Cristo. Ipagpatuloy po nawa ng Iglesia ni Cristo ang kanyang mabuting gawain para sa OFW sa Thailand at sa buong mundo. Thank you very much.
Tayong pagbati po sa tagapamahalang pangkalahatan ng Iglesia ni Cristo, Ginoong Eduardo V. Manalo, sa kanyang ika-11 taon ng pamumuno sa Iglesia ni Cristo, naway lalong lumago at lumakas ang inyong pamunuan.
Aloha and greetings from the Hawaii Bureau of Eagle Broadcasting Corporation.
Brother Eduardo V. Manalo, we want to greet you on your 11th anniversary of your dynamic and victorious leadership in the church, despite the pandemic that is going on throughout the world. We continue to promise that we will fulfill our duties and responsibility, and we will continue to submit to your administration.
And we thank you, Brother Eduardo V. Manalo, for leading this global church able to come together to help others in need, especially in these trying times. And we promise you that we will continue to diligently deliver the latest news and information in a balanced and timely manner because
we live in interesting times.
And that is the latest news in the Southeast Asian nations. Stay updated about the ASEAN region. I'm Alma Angeles. We live in interesting times.